The midlife crisis. Why does it happen? Are any of us immune? What's the point of this? So it's actually not just a midlife crisis. We actually know from psychological research, we tend to experience this type of existential crisis whenever we get close to hitting a decade in our lives. So it can be 20, it can be 30, it can be 40, any type of significant age that to us maybe like that whole number, like where it's like you're like the next decade over, it feels significant to us, right? And what happens is that typically we spend a lot of time appraising our lives and where we have come from and where we're at in that moment. And so it allows us to essentially like take stock. For a lot of us, we have a preconception of where we think we would be or what we will be like at a certain age. And sometimes there's a mismatch between these two, in which a lot of us think like, oh, okay, at 50, I thought I would be XYZ, and I'm not. And we kind of take this time to kind of feel that sadness of I'm not where I want to be in life. And I actually think for this reason, the midlife crisis is actually significant. The problem that people get into is they take that sadness, which is a really, really important emotion that's telling us something, and they distract themselves with like shiny things, whether it's like, you know, the classic like red sports car type of deal or whatever. It's not really putting a kind of bandage on the root cause. It's like putting a band-aid on this root cause, in which you're sad because your life isn't where you wanted to be. Maybe you're not in line with your values. Maybe there's things that you still wanted to do and you thought you would have done them by now. So examine that sadness and really like step into it. A lot of times if we kind of lean into the emotion and we're like, yes, I want to feel this sadness, that's when we get the wisdom from the emotion. What happens a lot is people don't want to feel sad around these like midlife crisis situations, and then they just like distract themselves. And that's why I think we see this type of like irrational behavior in which we have that like, you know, stereotype of the person just like buying a random sports car. And that's like essentially their way of like avoiding feeling that sadness of like, I thought I would be at a certain place. I also think the midlife crisis is really significant because it is midlife, right? Wherever like we think the line for midlife is, we realize that, you know, there is like an end to us, that, you know, it's not forever. And sometimes what I've seen is a lot of people don't spend a lot of time thinking about death. And so when they reach that midlife, like all of that sadness comes in and they're like, oh no, I can't avoid thinking about death anymore. So again, we go into distraction behavior, shiny sports car, like whatever. And that's kind of a way to escape that existentialism that we tend to feel when we realize that, you know, things are not forever. And again, you need to lean into that sadness. So like wanting to feel sad is the only way through. So suppressing the sadness, it'll come up again, maybe when like you're like 60 or something. So feeling that sadness, feeling like the wisdom of that emotion, I think is really important, because that's actually what contributes to changes instead of like distracting ourselves with objects.